So maybe one of the most frustrating shots in golf is when you get that great tee shot away and golfers have got fairway wood, but 3-wood particular in the hand. They set up and just cold top it absolutely nowhere. So what if I told you that very often some of the things you're doing at setup are almost guaranteeing that you're going to top the ball, but then also once you're swinging the golf club, what you're trying to do with the lack of loft of the club is killing any chance you've got of setting up, knowing what you need to do, and hitting a good solid one, even with that little fade, decent distance, but most importantly, in the air, and doing what the fairway wood should do. So I know what you're thinking. They didn't really look a lot different in the two swings and the setup. But let's talk about initially why golfers struggle, and particularly with 3-wood. So I think as they put the club down behind the golf ball, there's just not a lot of loft there. You know, there's 15 degrees on this 3-wood. And I think for most golfers, in their head, they're thinking they need to try and help the ball up in the air. So the first thing I often ask golfers when I'm working with them is, do you think when you hit a good fairway wood shot, you should touch the ground at all? And very often the answer's no. And that's usually because if they have hit the ground, they've usually hit the ground behind the golf ball, fatted it, and it's gone nowhere. So what they'll then do is miss the ground, but as they miss the ground, the club's travelled up and hit the golf ball. So the first thing we need to understand is we're trying to get that club a little bit that way at impact, and we need to understand how we're going to get the lowest point of our swing ahead of the golf ball so that the club's travelling down to hit ball and then ground. So I think that's the initial concept of understanding that you should be touching the ground. So most golfers, when they swing, and I do this very occasionally with fairway wood, definitely caught that one a little bit heavy. We see low point 2 inches behind the golf ball, 200 yards and 2, 3, 4. So even though the club didn't dig massively there with the design of the club, if the ground had been soft, that would have absolutely killed me distance-wise. So let's talk about, now we've changed the idea that we want to get that low point ahead and we need the club travelling down. So the first mistake I see a lot of golfers make is they get that golf ball way forward in the stance. And if we were to get the ball forward like that, as a general rule, the low point's probably opposite your kind of lead shoulder. So you can see once that's a little bit behind the golf ball, and then golfers try and move their weight off the ball. As they get back, they're going to be back here. So we're going to get that golf ball a little bit more central, maybe just kind of opposite where my heart would be. And then what we're going to say, and then what we're going to say is, rather than feel that we get lots and lots of spine tilt away from the target like with driver, we just want to get our lead hand on the club. That sets the height of that shoulder. And then as that hand comes in from underneath the shaft, we can see a little bit of spine tilt, but not a huge amount. Then I think the last thing at address is we want to feel just a little bit more pressure on that lead foot at address. A lot of golfers sit back here, and then straight away you can see I'm going to be bottoming out well behind the golf ball. Even if I move, I'm still going to be catching behind. So the first thing I would do is make those little changes at address, and then hit a shot and just see what that strike's like. And for a lot of golfers straight away, they'll notice that the contact's good. Even though the low point's a little bit behind there, the contact's better than it would have been before. So, didn't really try and change anything in my swing. I just changed those setup positions and straight away started to get a better contact on the golf ball. So then the key is, once you're swinging, let's not be looking at the back of the ball, because I think a lot of golfers talk about that and it's staying back here and it's really hard for them to get moving towards the target. So a drill I use a lot with irons, we're going to set up, get the club kind of level with where the ball would be, but when I swing I want to try and touch the ground 2-3 inches ahead. So it's going to make me feel that once I'm getting towards the top of my backswing, I'm going to shift much more aggressively down and towards the target. And we see those two practice swings there, touching much further ahead of the golf ball. So then use that concept when the ball's there. And we can see that one not quite out the middle of the club, but 1.5 inches ahead. Clubs travel 2 degrees down, 218 carry and 233 total. Now, I'll be honest, with me, this is definitely the club when the ball's on the ground that I have to work the hardest at this. And I still think it's that thing about, because of the lack of loft there, it's kind of like my brain wants to see the ball launch a little higher than it does. But if I can really just accept that 15-degree club, I am de-lofting from being there, but by using a little higher up the face, the curve on the face has got more loft, it should actually hit the ball higher if I can feel like I'm de-lofting the club a little more through impact. So ball just forward of centre, not too much shaft lean, a little bit more left-sided at address, put a good swing on it. And we can see there, 1.5 inches ahead, much higher up the club face, so giving me 10 degrees launch, 240 carry and 264 total. Now, what I would say for a lot of golfers is that as good as you might deliver it with 3-wood, actually lack of loft on that face, associated potentially with you not swinging quick enough, might mean 3-wood off the ground isn't the one that hits it the furthest. Might be 5-wood, might be 7-wood. But as long as you can make sure you get set up correctly and move correctly with the club, you're going to start striking the ball correctly, striking it solidly, and stop topping those fairway woods. And if you can get up there with any of those fairway woods and feel confident that you can get that good strike on the ball, it is going to make it much, much easier to start moving the ball as far as you can from the ground, and I guarantee that'll give you the chance to score better.